Greetings, wonderful people. Before I launch into my weekly monologue, I just want to give you a quick reminder to check out my patreon.com site. In fact, to do more than check it out, go there and spend some money, because it's by joining, parting with a bit of cash, that you show meaningful support for the channel, which means that we can keep going and get stuff done. And as the quid pro quo is, you get early access to all the new content, an exclusive question and answer session every week that only happens on the patreon.com site. It's great. It's a really good site. It's full of stuff, and it'd be lovely to see you there. All right, let's get into this week's mono. Contrary to my best hopes and intentions and endeavours and whatever, I think it's hard to avoid the upcoming general election. I mean, you know, for me, I'm preoccupied with it because it annoys me so much. the very thought of it. I mean, to be honest with you, as of myself now, 57 years old, the thought of a general election, well, it's a process that makes me want to swallow my own liver. I mean, in recent months and years, long before this latest pantomime was on the calendar, people were urging me to stand as a candidate for this or that party, various. You must stand for so-and-so and whatever. Goodness knows why they thought that just because I was sometimes pontificating on a screen that I should be, you know, sitting in the House of Commons. I don't know. But anyway, they did. And then that still comes in. I still get told that I really ought to be a candidate for whoever, but now I'm being encouraged to endorse some of what's out there. Endorse this party, endorse that party, throw your weight behind whatever. And well, it's a no from me. I won't do that. I mean, well, the chance, I've said it before and I'll say it again, the chances are that on the day, 4th of July, I will vote. It will be a gesture that I'll make towards whoever on the ballot seems to me the least worst option. That's what I'll do. I'll probably pick an independent candidate, a name, a local person that's thrown their hat in the ring, and I'll put my cross alongside their name, because I believe fundamentally it does matter. It ought to matter to vote. That ought to be true. And I'll say as well, as God is my judge, I will never vote again for any part of the Uni Party. Certainly not Conservative or Labour. I never have voted Scottish National Party, and I never would, not even with a gun to my head. But I'll never vote for the establishment again. I'll just vote for someone else. You're making sure that while my vote is cast, it's not cast for any of the obvious time-served crooks. I say the fact of the matter is that the political system of the West in general, and the political system of Britain in particular, has run its course. It's had its day. It's done. It's obvious to all. Even I would say it's obvious to those that are still putting on a good show of remaining committed to it. I think we all know it's bollocks. It's a racket. It's a scam. But having said that, it'll be a low turnout, I'm pretty sure. Well, I could be wrong, you know, but the same lumps of population will turn out and vote blue and vote red. That'll happen. And when they do, if they vote Labour or Tory, I would say that's just symptomatic of having somehow managed to still be failing to realise how rotten the system is. They're just turning a blind eye to the corruption in which our noses are being rubbed. I mean, you can't miss the corruption. A vote for red or a vote for blue is nothing more or less than a vote in support of criminal syndicates on the take and on the make. I mean, it's obvious. And so the only way in which a vote can stand even a chance of being meaningful this time around And to be fair, to give the devil his due, a look across at what's been happening elsewhere in Europe gives some genuine cause for optimism. The only chance is if it's a vote, if as many people as possible's votes deny the establishment crooks, the globalists, the one world government types enthralled to the World Economic Forum and the central banks. If whatever you do on the day, it denies any of the usual suspects any more oxygen and signals instead a desire at least for something else, anything else, then on that basis, I'm prepared to accept that it might mean something. But that said, I fear the masses will do what the masses always do and indicate insanity by acting the same way in expectation of a different result. That Einstein line about, madness is repeating the same experiment and expecting different results. And I suspect that's what will happen. But as they do say, it's hard to stop a man believing in something when his salary depends upon him continuing to believe it. And if you're getting something from the system, if you haven't yet been spat out by the system, if it's still making your bed and washing your face for you, you probably decide that you'll just keep on going. First past the post, they call it in this benighted country of ours. Talk about flogging a dead horse. And so when it comes to that vexed challenge that I mentioned earlier about how I'm continuously encouraged, let's say, to endorse someone or other, I can say that I am very even-handed in my distrust and cynicism towards the whole sorry lot of them. There is no one, literally no one, that I could, in all honesty, actually endorse. I mean, if they're not the obvious establishment figures who are blatantly corrupt, liars, frauds, empty sock puppets, mouthing the words of their masters, whoever they are, then in other ways they've made it inevitable that I find them unappetizing. And after all I've said on here and elsewhere during the past few years, how could I possibly endorse anyone who pushed the unsafe and ineffective gene therapies that led to death and hurt for legions of people? I can't overlook that. I can't overlook that there's people standing now on this or that ticket, but I haven't forgotten that they took part in pushing all of that. Long after it was clear that no good could possibly come of it, long after the point when the evidence had stacked up, making plain to any reasonable person the threat to life. Long past that point, too many of those standing for election now were happy to push the product and to join in the bullying and ridiculing of those who wanted nothing to do with it. And similarly, how could I endorse anyone who spoke in favour of lockdowns, in favour of school closures, and thereby of the ruining of lives? How could I endorse any of that? How could I endorse anyone who absented themselves, scuttling away when MP Andrew Bridgen stood up in the chamber of the House of Commons to ask questions about excess deaths? How could you stand? How could you? How could I endorse anyone who speaks now in favour of war? War with Russia, for instance. And lunatics here are talking about citizen armies and national service, which is the on-ramp to conscription for the kids. How could I endorse any of that? How could I endorse anyone who turns a blind eye to genocide in Gaza? And when I say turning a blind eye, at the very least, that's what they're doing. What I will endorse is the thought of millions of votes cast for independent candidates and alternative voices, contrarians, disruptors, any and all of them. I've had a lot of time. I still have a lot of time for people who I don't agree maybe with their ideology, and I don't agree with what they did necessarily around the so-called vaccines and lockdown and all of the rest of it. They're still contrarians. They're still disruptors. And if there's a mass movement, I suppose Brexit style, of those where those disruptors are collectively voted for as an alternative, as a meaningful alternative to the blob, and if that were to break the stranglehold of the corrupt entities long past their sell-by date, well, all well and good. What I endorse is knowing better. And we should all know better than to throw even one more vote into the hands of those lying establishment bastards who care for no one but themselves, who are demonstrably in it only for what they can get out of it. They don't even believe the bollocks they talk. They're just there because they're snouts deep in the trough. Now, the party system in this country, whatever age it is now, 150 years old, 200 years old, it was a bad idea from the get-go because it subverted, as it was designed to, the aims and intentions of independent individuals. It subverted all of that to ideologies committed only to obtaining and holding on to power. The party system was always going to do that because that's what it was meant to do, and that's what it did. And by now, its failure having been utterly exposed for all to see, long ago, anyone seeking to perpetuate that system is guilty of, well, fanaticism, to be honest, at the very least. Spanish-American philosopher George Santayana said of fanaticism that it was about, quote, redoubling your effort after you've forgotten your aim. And there you have it. That's all there is in the British party system now. That's all there is in the United States of America party system, for that matter. Nothing justifying its continuation other than the thinking that goes along the lines of, we've always done it this way, so we'll keep doing it this way forever. You know, and I suppose everyone gets to an age where it seems that there are obvious solutions to obvious problems that are not sophisticated. That come down, I suppose, to really anyone who's had any kind of go at being part of a family as an adult. You know, so many solutions to so many obvious problems are so simple, and they're only overlooked or cast aside, really, because by the application of those simple solutions, it would get in the way of the gravy train, the corruption, and the surefire way to ensure the powerful stay in power. When you get right down to it, a lot of what those establishment blobs have set in place and what they maintain at all costs is a culture of dependency. They have engineered an ecosystem that breeds dependency. Fat, sick, unhealthy, uneducated, frightened, dependent people. Dependent for everything on those above them in the food chain are so easy to control. That's how you make the flock of sheep that's always at the mercy of the shepherds. And I say the solution starts with turning off the free money tap. Right across the board, really. Just as for instance, anyone seriously wanting to stop illegal immigration of the sort that's flooding Britain now would just turn off the financial incentives to illegal arrivals. It doesn't take any more than that. You know, of course, open bracket, offer shelter and succour to bona fide refugees fleeing war and oppression, by all means. But free hotels and cash and whatever else for young lads with their eye on the prize that is a one-way ticket to a country, you know, where the needs and wants of new arrivals are prioritised at the expense of tax-paying citizens. I don't think so. So, I mean, there's no need for warships in the Channel, in the English Channel. You don't, nothing. Or the nonsense talk of, you know, herding people aboard the trains and you know, and taking them, whatever, bayonets fixed to the ferries and the planes to deport them elsewhere. Rwanda, don't be silly. You don't need any of that. If there was no financial incentive to come here, people would stop coming. And you can't overlook for a minute that if we stopped bombing countries all around the world, destabilising countries all around the world, provoking regime change in countries all around the world, or egged on the United States of America while it did so, You know, if the West wasn't in the business of impoverishing millions, destabilising entire populations, then those millions might stay home and make and live lives there. They're on the move, a lot of them, because they've got no option. And of course, it's also true that people are being deliberately lured here, herded here by those who stand to benefit from their arrival. You know, for all sorts of reasons, driving down the wages of the poorest paid in this country. That's what you can do with illegal immigration, or at the same time, you can change the demographics and the voting intentions of entire communities. You fundamentally altering the fabric of entire nations faster and more effectively than any invasion dreamt of by a Napoleon or a Hitler. That's a quick fix for ideologues determined to get their way in the face of entrenched opposition made of indigenous populations stuck in their ways. And consider as well the billions of pounds that are shipped abroad to be laundered, for instance, through the corrupt regime of Ukraine. Consider how that money might be invested here at home. Imagine if the objective truly was to educate our children rather than indoctrinate them with the ideology of the day. Imagine if the billions were invested in wholehearted education in every sense of the word, et duco, to lead out, to bring forth that which was innately in the person. Imagine if education was about that. Imagine if it was intended to inspire free thinkers and entrepreneurs and people that just want to work and get on. Imagine if, rather than throwing good money after bad into the leviathan that is the NHS, the National Health Service, and for a long time Britain has been an NHS with a society bolted loosely onto the side as an afterthought. Imagine if the intention was to keep people healthy in the first place, with good diet and an emphasis on exercise and general well-being. Imagine if, rather than paying welfare to generations of the hopeless, the money was payable for participation in community projects to enable the hopeful to repair and maintain every aspect of the crumbling fabric of our societies. Imagine if people were paid to do something rather than being paid to do nothing, generation after generation. You know, a society has to take care of those truly in need. Of course it does. That's civilization. But get serious and admit that for generations now the system has been taken for the mother of all rides. For too long, the system has not benefited the people, the spirit of the people. It has not aided those with a mind to make the country and the world a better place. The powers that be have deliberately brought Britain to its knees. It's long past time to stand up. Honestly, it's not that hard.